Hello and welcome to the VMware Cloud Foundation Live, a monthly live stream where we discuss strategies and solutions for your cloud infrastructure journey. My name is Pete Fletcher, and I'll be your host for this episode. And we're going to be talking today about workload mobility with VMware HCX. Now, for those that are not familiar, VMware HCX is an application mobility platform that simplifies application migration, workload rebalancing, and business continuity across data centers and clouds. So we're going to be talking about this with a couple of folks. I'm definitely not alone. We're going to start by bringing on product marketing engineer Devyani Pasalkar. Devyani, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you viewers for taking the time to learn about HCX.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. I've heard about HCX for a long time, but I know there's a lot of new features coming in. I'm excited to talk about those. Also joining the conversation is Staff Technology Product Manager Gabe Rosas. Gabe, welcome.
Hey, Pete, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So VMware customers, especially the more nerdy ones, I'm sure are familiar with what HCX is. Some may not be though. So this is a large audience in LinkedIn. So why don't we just start from the very top? Maybe I'd love to talk a little bit about the high level, sort of what it is, what purpose it serves. Maybe we can get a little deeper and talk about some of the various use cases and maybe do some comparisons. We are going to answer questions live, so if you are watching this, feel free to drop your questions in, and I'm sure we'll get those answered. But why don't we start with you, Devyani? Take us from the very top, like level set. What exactly is HCX?
Sure. So in simple terms, HCX is a workload migration and mobility tool. And let's talk about migration versus mobility for a second. So when we say migration, that could be a permanent move. Let's say I'm consolidating data centers and I want to move all of the VMs from here to over here. And that, I would say, is a migration. Workload mobility means a little more of a fluid approach, meaning I'm going to move these VMs from here to here, but I might decide to move them back. Maybe things got cheaper to operate in this data center versus the other one. So to reiterate, HCX is used for both workload migration and mobility, and it integrates very closely with vCenter on both sides, generally speaking. And you can migrate across any vSphere versions, specifically vSphere version 6.5 and up. And if you ask me why that's important, it eliminates the need to invest in bringing both sides up to parity and enables you to modernize your data centers with that full software-defined stack. And one thing to note is that HCX automates. Automation is a big part of HCX. HCX automates the creation of a hybrid interconnect to enable IT admins to easily and more securely migrate those workloads from one data center to another, or maybe a data center to cloud, or from cloud to cloud bidirectionally. And really, a big part of our company vision and strategy is to help our customers accelerate data center transformation and land on that agile VCF or VMware Cloud Foundation powered private cloud. And HCX plays a huge role in accelerating the journey to VCF for our customers. And if you ask, like, hey, what's special about HCX? There's really a lot to say. It's been in the market for over 10 years. It's a robust and proven solution, really best in its class. And our customers love it, not only because it does the job reliably, but it's also operationally simple and efficient to use. And to call out,
honestly, not to cut you off, but that's definitely, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I go back to the days when these things were not so simple, and migrating was always a pain, and just changing networks and understanding the differences and getting that stuff right was not always easy. So it was definitely one of the things I noticed about HCX was the way it created this interconnect, and nothing needed to be changed, and it really made the migration process so much simpler. I think that is that's not easy to do, and I know we're going to talk more later about some of the more details about that. But I think at a very high level, it is amazing how simple HCX makes migrations.
Absolutely. And I'd like to call out maybe a couple of very useful capabilities to just start us off here. Migration waves. So let's say you want to migrate hundreds of VMs from one data center to another, but you want to do it in waves because you want to group those VMs in groups that make sense for the application. and you want to move them together and ensure that they always stay together in the same data center. And this is where migration waves or migration groups come in handy. The other very useful capability is scheduled migrations. So here, when you want to move from point A to point B, you can specify at this time, and you could go even a step further and say, I want to start syncing the data from the VMs from site A to site B, but I don't want you to switch over to site B, which is the active site, for that one VM until 11 p.m. on Saturday during our maintenance window. So you can be very granular about scheduling migrations. Again, that's one difference when you compare it with vMotions. And then the other one that we'll be talking about more in detail is the migration types. And one of the marquee ones is the replication assisted vMotion or bulk vMotion, where we switch the VMs over, the workloads stay live. And that's really a big deal because you don't have to worry about doing it one at a time. You can do them in larger waves. So bulk vMotion or replication assisted vMotion is one of the very useful features. But a general rule of thumb is that if VMs are going to be migrated to another vCenter, you can probably do that with HCX. So how does that sound, Pete?
That's a mouthful. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that, how the migration assisted vMotion. But did we nail the overall understanding of the various use cases? Because there's the replatforming and upgrading, the rebalancing, which is which is a big one as well. I'm curious, when you talk to customers, like what are some of the main reasons they use HCX for?
Sure, I'll highlight a couple of scenarios. So the first one I would say is data center consolidation. Let's say you have 20 data centers and you want to migrate all of those 20 data centers down to 3 or maybe down to 1. You can do that with HCX. You can move all of those VMs to a more consolidated footprint so that you can save power, cooling, data center cost, licensing, all of that. Another use case that we have seen in the field is disaster avoidance. Let's say you want to move your virtual machines to a secondary location before a disaster hits. Let's say a natural disaster like a hurricane is coming, and you can move your business critical virtual machines over to the other data center and be completely okay and evacuate from that main data center. And another one is just cross cloud mobility. Let's say you want to move your VMs based on cost or other factors. You can do that very easily. Let's say today it's VMware Cloud on Azure. That's where some of your applications live. That's your primary data center. But tomorrow you might decide, you know what, VCF on premises, that makes more sense. So you can pull those VMs back and go ahead and migrate them to VCF on premises. And again, it's not really a permanent migration. It's just mobility, the ability to move VMs around as you see fit. And then another one that I'd like to call out is where HCX is used as a simple path to upgrade vSphere versions or legacy or aging hardware. So let's say you have a bunch of old servers that are running ESXi 6.5, and you really want to get to 8.0. You want one of those newer vSphere versions, and you want to upgrade to a full modern cloud infrastructure. So how do you do that? Well, thanks to HCX, you can install your new servers, use HCX to migrate the VMs from that legacy hardware over to the new servers with VCF instantiated. And again, you could say like, hey, I could do that with vMotion. Well, we'll talk more about the benefits of HCX versus vMotion. But again, I've only scratched the surface here. Back to you, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the other things that you mentioned that about you talked about using planning this for disaster recovery, and the first thing I thought of was like, well, doesn't SRM already do that, right? Like, so SRM, like if you were planning for a disaster and you wanted to proactively move to another site, does this work with SRM or is this completely separate?
Yeah, so when it comes to disaster recovery, really our official solution is SRM. HCX, we really don't use it for disaster recovery. The one that I would call out is just disaster avoidance, where on a one-off basis, when you don't have a DR solution in place, you might decide to move your VMs proactively.
Okay.
I can expand a little bit more, Pete. Also, so like whenever you're talking about disaster recovery and business continuity, really the use case is like primarily like the elimination of where the VMs are currently running. Right, it goes away, something happens, and recover from that point. So SRM or live recovery is using a kind of a point in time replica of data to bring the VM back to an operational state with some data loss in general, right? Whenever you're over in the ACX world, uh, thanks for the banner introduction. Yeah, in ACX land, whenever we're moving VMs, we're coordinating this movement with an expectation that the source environment and the infrastructure running it is there, right? We're coordinating a move without data loss. So that's kind of a key difference. And also we're doing we have ancillary features to tackle conversions in flight and to make sure the VM is connected when it lands, and all of this other stuff that really ultimately requires both sites to be online. So it kind of it takes the planned migration aspect of moving VMs further than the SRM, right? But it's a different use cases. So I know in the opening we talked about business continuity, but that's more of an SRM use case.
Yeah.
Migration and connectivity during that is the ACX bread and butter.
No, absolutely. It's the workload mobility that makes, that is certainly the secret sauce, right? Being able to do that. Like, obviously, if you have SRM, you've got these plans, you can do those proactives, you can fail over in the case of a disaster. But regardless of whether or not you have that, the ability to do this with HCX is super powerful. Gabe, I'm certainly not done with you. I've got some other questions, but before we do, I did want to ask you, Devyani, and I know, we're not going to talk prices here. This is certainly not a P&P full-on discussion, but I am curious, like, when people are looking at HCX, how do they get it? Like, what is it part of a solution? Like, give me the highest level, if you could, sort of understanding of like how people actually can acquire HCX.
Sure. So HCX is part of the VCF offering. This is the route to market for HCX. So you get HCX as part of VCF, and you get all of the features, the entire enterprise feature set. And in case you're not familiar with VCF, for some of our audience members here, VCF is really our single integrated solution for a cloud deployment. It includes a complete set of software-defined services for compute, storage, network, security, cloud management to run your enterprise applications in private or public environments. And VCF, as you can see here, it's sold per core, and it is sold direct through channel partners, resellers, and CSPs. So you can buy a VCF license and instantiate that in your data center or your colo for a private cloud deployment. You can consume VCF through a cloud service provider. That's also possible. You can consume VCF in the public cloud, as we have partnerships with all leading hyperscalers. And again, HCX in its entirety is already included in the VCF offering. So if you are a VCF customer or you plan to be one, just know that just automatically you have entitlement to HCX. So very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's not like, because obviously VMware Cloud Foundation, it has that core offering, and then there's a whole bunch of add-ons, right? So HCX is not an add-on. It is part of the actual core offering of VCF.
Correct.
I like it. So Gabe, we were talking a little bit about use cases, and I know there's a lot more. I'd love to see if we could possibly expand on some of the migration types that you've heard customers talking about.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I can take a moment and kind of recap some of the ways ACX moves data, right? So like fundamentally, the ACX functionality falls in three buckets. So we have a workload migration, a workload mobility. So the technology is available to move virtual machines. Actually, so I can actually start there, right? You see a huge list of things there. You have down from a cold migration all the way up to like a replication assisted vMotion, and then more. But so the reason we have so many types is because there's different use cases that can take advantage or can be accomplished by specific technologies, right? So I think it's really easy to sort of to think. I have vMotion, and vMotion by itself it's a fantastic protocol, right? It moves memory state and keeps the VM live, and this is one of the technologies our users know and love, right? But there's also alternate approaches to moving that data, to moving the workload. The replication-based approaches, like we said earlier with SRM, well, one of the things that we have in common is we use the vSphere replication engine for the replication-based migration types. In ACX terminology, that's an ACX bulk migration is a replication-based, is a fully replication-based migration type. Whenever you're working with replication, one of the big differences between replication and vMotion is you will take a little bit of controlled downtime for that migration type, but the benefits that you get out of that is that you're able to do things that are otherwise impossible, right? So like one of them is you're able to change vendors, right? So you can migrate the VM from like Intel to AMD and vice versa. You have the kind of flexibility there. The migration type, while it doesn't go as fast as a vMotion. vMotion has the characteristic that it saturates a pipe, right? So when you vMotion, the protocol's behavior is to say, hey, what resources are available to send to send my traffic. We have a lot of customers that say, hey, wait, I know I can vMotion, but I don't want to saturate my my pipe or my underlay with vMotion traffic. I want to have control over how much data is being sent over the wire. So replication helps in that approach, in that it uses a kind of a more controlled approach to migrating the initial disk at a more controlled rate, and then just by tracking changes and sending those over time. So another benefit of that is you have a more resilient protocol. So in the case of a vMotion, and actually I see the question, why not use vMotion? How does it AC? Okay, so I think the question is a little bit different. You have the vSphere vMotion that exists natively in the vCenter, and then you have an ACX flavor of vMotion that uses something we call the mobility agent. So there's a difference between those two things, and I'll get to that. So, but to finish up the replication comparison, on the replication front, we're able to do things like transform the VM, adjust the disk. We're able to install tools and make changes to some of the configuration of the VM. We're able to change things like DNS, the IP address of a VM. We're able to operate against the VM as part of the whole process, right? So if you take a migration project at a large scale, it's not just moving a VM. Sometimes you're having to repoint to different identity domain components. Sometimes your common network infrastructure is changing as a part of your project.
Oh yeah.
Often you're not going to back up. Like for instance, if you're going across a WAN and you have backups running on your servers, like it's very common that once you migrate something, you're going to point it to another backup server, so that way your backups don't go across your WAN. So our migration types that are based on replication allow you to make changes like that on the fly. So you get a lot of flexibility in reducing the amount of post-migration projects and things. So also the replication protocol itself is more resilient to just network anomalies, right? So vMotion is, like I said, it's fantastic, but it's like a race car. It's like it goes fast, and everybody wants to be in that race car, but you have to have a clean track, right? You have to have a way to make it to the destination without a lot of bumps. If you have like a kind of a bumpy road, that race car is going to fall apart. I mean, I mean, reasonably speaking, the replication is more like like a bus or like a moving truck, right? So you're sometimes the priority is not to take the single passenger and go as fast as you can. You want to be efficient at scale, right? Sometimes it's not one passenger; it's 100,000 of them, and we want to be able to move them across to the other side in a way that's efficient. So the replication based migration types allow last mile scheduling. So a cool thing in the ACX bucket of things you can do is you can do live migrations of VMs. You can do live migrations of replicated VMs. So we have something called replication assisted vMotion, which attempts to take the best of the moving truck and the race car, right? So imagine it's like a moving truck with a little race car inside of it. So
a Ferrari race truck.
Yeah. So you can take all of your migrations and do them in controlled, waves, and at the very end, you're like kind of the race car comes out and finishes the activity. So it's like a last mile live migration with RAV. So our customers really like this with this way of migrating. So they get the benefit of the resiliency. They can go at mass scale, like with with this latest release, we're like massively increasing our scale, so they can take advantage of things like that. Now, the question itself that we had was about a comparison between ACX vMotion and just the traditional native vMotion that people know, right? Those are different. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we're kind of bringing you all of the benefits within ACX for both of these kinds of emotions. But in general, of emotion, in the ACX world, the benefit is you have a purpose-built experience for mass migration, right? So you're tracking your scheduling, and you're modernizing the VMs, you're scripting on top of them, and you're doing things that are pretty difficult to do if you're kind of going back to your vCenter and doing like individual operations, right? So it's the intent is we give you the technologies to plan and to to tackle the nuances of a scale migration as opposed to one of operation with a vMotion.
Yeah, nobody's going to be onesie twosieing migrations. You don't slot. There's no disaster recovery plan that's like, oh, let me just use vMotion to get these over, like one at a time. You want to have a planned migration. So yeah, that makes sense to put these in bulk. But yeah, I love the fact that it can actually be combined with vMotion. That seems like the best of the both world.
One of the best aspects of the ACX flavor of a vMotion is you have this mobility agent kind of a proxy technology that allows your infrastructure to be like fully unaware of each other, right? So like ships in the night, you have your environment that runs workloads in some way. Most of our customers are like, hey, I want those things to keep running. I don't want to mess with them. I don't want to invest more effort in changing what's already working there. I just want to go adopt my new thing. So kind of the ACX way of migration really plays well into that. So helping in preparing connectivity and connecting the sites without making them aware of each other, right? So the mobility agent, with it sitting in the middle, the way the ACX works is it makes the workload seem to be migrating locally inside of each vCenter, right? So in wherever the workload is sourced, you initiate an operation. Stuff happens like locally, and then like us behind the covers, we take this the data and we stream it over to the destination site, and we do another local operation. In that sense, you get a couple of more benefits from that mode of operation, right? So you have the ability for IP addresses in these sites to be to overlap, to be like sometimes if you're routing your vMotion networks is not possible. ACX can sit in the middle and provide that sort of connectivity. If you have things like NAT and other things that vMotion natively doesn't support, you can achieve those with ACX. Also, like the compatibility checks that sometimes may fail with the native vMotion are very often supported, and it's just part of the natural experience in ACX. So you get compatibility, you get a support for like overlapping cluster IPs and things that are a little bit more complicated. So that way our customers don't have to go re-IP clusters and things like that. So
I love that. I love that. So just out of curiosity, like how does someone even get started with HCX? Like, customer says, hey, I just bought VCF. I've never used HCX before. It's part of VCF. Like, how do I actually start using it? Is there, what is we don't need to go through step-by-step deployment, but just at a high level, sort of what does it look like to get started with HCX?
Yeah, I think the typical way to think of it is if I guess from a usage perspective, right? So if you're moving beyond onesie twosie migrations and you want kind of a controlled way to do things, or you have a use case for the adoption of your VCF environment, really the way it looks is you're going to deploy an ACX component that goes hand in hand with your vCenter servers. So you have at least in this point in time, that's kind of the model that we're following. So you have an ACX managed piece for each vCenter. And then you launch that, and it works like a service catalog. You say, hey, I want my ACX to be able to connect networks via network extension, and I want to be able to migrate VMs, and so it's like a la carte. The things that you want to do, you enable them, and HCX actually automatically deploys the data plane that is able to handle these kind of services that you enable. It's pretty cool. Once these VMs deploy, they have a basic IP address, and they're just all you did was say, hey, which clusters are going to be part of my ACX service domain. We deploy, and these things auto connect. Like they create encrypted tunnels, and they were kind of idle and ready to go. It's like a really one of the simplest service models I believe that are out there for this.
Nice.
And I'll just add to that and say we probably won't be discussing other products, but we really have a good integration embedded together, sort of a story with We Realize Network Insight, or what's called ARIA Operations for Networks, where you can essentially plan your migrations with the tool, with the ARIA Operations for Networks, and understand your application boundaries, really do that application discovery, plan those migration groups, and then HCX actually does the execution of the migration. But we probably won't get into that today.
I want to take this question here. I see in the chat from Rafat Mohammed Iraqi. Is support for OpenStack environments? Yeah. So HCX has so in the migration types. So I think we briefly talked about ACX vMotion, bulk migration, replication assisted vMotion, which is a mix of both of those. We also have something called OS assisted migration. So ACX actually has an agent that you can leverage, so that you have, if you have workloads that are outside of the supported vSphere range, or they're running on KVM or Hyper-V, you can install an OS agent and stream that data over to our appliances so that we can ingest them. The cool thing about we call it OSAM, by the way, OS assisted migration. So an OSAM migration will actually do so it lives in the OS and it operates inside of the OS, makes the connection to ACX. We see it as a VM in our inventory to migrate with this technology type. You similar to a bulk migration, you can also convert a VM. You can change the CPU memory, do fix up on it, and migrate it right on a schedule. So it's logically speaking, it looks like a bulk migration, but the components are a piece of software that runs in the OS. So that means for OSAM, we have to qualify operating systems, but effectively it's like a bulk migration, and it is supported, I guess, to answer the core question.
Nice. I also see Jonathan Copeland said he loves using it in his home lab. I'd love to hear more about that. He's working on HCX and NSX in the home lab. That definitely sounds interesting to me. I'm actually doing a session at Explore on home lab. So Jonathan, if you are going to Explore, come hit me up, man. We'd love to hear more about that. Very cool. So we can continue to answer questions. This is live. So for folks that are live streaming, by all means, get some more questions asked. I do have some more questions about just some of the new updates that are coming up. But are there any questions that you want to jump on before we do that?
Yeah, I think he was Jonathan actually was asking about like the bare minimum requirements. So the bare minimum. Okay, so somebody shared a link to the documentation. So I think we have a systems requirements there, of course. But like really, what you have is for the foundational kind of service architecture, you have bare minimum. You have a migration appliance. This we call it the IX. This migration appliance has one IP address that it uses to reach out to the other wherever you're migrating to. So like from your legacy into your VCF, or from your VCF to VCF, or from cloud to cloud. So it's one management IP, and then one IP for the vMotion network. That's like the typical requirement, other than like your basic CPU memory, etc. And then we have another appliance which really you for the network extension part of it, you need one appliance with a management IP for your distributed switch, and really that's for the services. You can do most of what ACX can do by having those two components. And of course, there's a manager that requires an IP, and it's like deploying a small vCenter effectively. So those three things can kind of get you going for most of what ACX can do.
I like it. Shannon asking here. Let's see. Where is it? Can you elaborate on the requirement to have NSX on the target site? What are the benefits of of having NSX?
Yeah, I think so. NSX is both HCX and NSX are part of the VCF stack, right? A benefit of I guess requirement is you have to have NSX as a component that you register in HCX. A benefit of it is you're able to do automated creation of networks wherever you're migrating, right? So if you have like, let's say you have 50 VLANs in your existing environment, and you want to adopt overlays, and you want to like get into NSX with minimal effort. You don't want to do a bunch of like pre-creation or recreation of workload connectivity. You can use ACX for like a really simple. Actually, it's one of the coolest things to me. So you can right click a port group in your VC and say, hey, extend this network with ACX. So ACX goes and orchestrates like the whole operation with NSX. We connect to a tier 1 gateway, and we create your network there. So you don't have to go create anything like that. So we create the configuration. We deploy an appliance that connects to the overlay side, like the VLAN side in this example. And and what's really cool is whenever you migrate, we automatically map these destination overlays as part of the migration. So whenever you say, hey, migrate, servers A, B, and C, we see that hey, this VM is sitting on an extended network. The migration interface knows, hey, like this VM is here. It's been extended. I know where it needs to land. Like we're going to prevent downtime from like picking the wrong network. So we auto map things where they need to go, and it's really awesome. So it eases NSX adoption. It auto maps the right landing for these operations. So I think it makes the whole experience very easy. So if you're transitioning away from not only are you moving the workload, but if you're also migrating the networks themselves to run somewhere else, ACX and NSX together kind of automate that and make it. I think the easiest. It's like the easiest path to do that, to do both gateway and server migrations.
I like it. I like it. All right. Well,
Hey, Gabe,
that was a mouthful. Take a sip. Take a sip. You've earned that sip.
I have a fun fact in the meantime to give Gabe a breather, but we looked at some migration types, and our data shows that bulk migration type, for obvious reasons, has been the most popular. But to be fair, it's also been around the longest. And then the second most popular, of course, has been the replicated assisted vMotion.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question from Jonathan Copeland about hairpinning. Actually, would love to take that. So yeah, so how does ACX avoid hairpinning? It's really cool. So hairpinning, just to kind of level set on what that is. Whenever you're going through
I don't know what that means.
when you're going through a migration exercise, right, and you're extending your networks, you're doing L2 stretch. You have a L2 stretch is really cool. Like in that you have a consistent broadcast domain, and as you migrate VMs, they can talk to each other across a WAN. It's an awesome technology, but like a downside of it is as your migration progresses, especially over distinct. So like if you have VLAN 1 and VLAN 2 and you've extended both of them, and you start migrating over time, what you see is like if you have communications across those networks, that network trombones goes back to the original gateway to route, and it comes back to the other side. So you end up incurring like a double path. Your latency doubles, if I guess to say it in few words. So ACX actually has a really cool technology to help avoid that. It's called mobility optimized networking. It's an advanced capability of network extension, and what it does is it's like selective localized routing as you're migrating. It's really cool stuff. So so if you have routed servers that are latency sensitive, so like let's say you have a busy app server and DB and like but they're sitting on different networks, and you have to migrate them. What you can do is you can migrate them together. The MON feature, this advanced feature allows those two servers to communicate locally at the migrated site. But then you can be selective about everything else. You can say, hey, whatever has been migrated, route locally, and then for everything else, either you can define whether to egress locally or to go back and route. So you have options. If you're going across a WAN and you want internet traffic to be handled like at your destination, you can do that. If you want to have all traffic route back, you can do that as well. So you have options. You can say route NSX networks. That's another advantage of NSX and ACX together. So this mon feature allows things to route locally when it makes sense, and then go back to the original router, which is still running and working, as part of the solution. So you have knobs and flexibility for different flow patterns as you're migrating. So for whatever your use case is.
Nice. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I do want to save a little time for talking about, like, I know the latest version. So VCF 5.2 just came out. So what version of HCX is in VCF 5.2?
So aligned with VCF2 is HCX 410. 410.
410. Okay.
Yeah, 410 will see the light of day very soon. Yeah, well, actually, we can get right into it. I think I have some content, so I can just jump into the features if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
I love these comments. Mine is just magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to, like, my mom loves Mon. Okay, so in ACX 410, this is what's coming, right? So a lot of it's a minor release of ACX. This is going to be the July drop. This, I guess, is a sneak peek of what's coming there, right? So one of the cooler thing is we've overhauled the migration platform for higher concurrency, right? So I think I mentioned, maybe didn't mention. So historically, an ACX managed component site can handle about 300 migrations, right? So that was a sort of a historical number. Last year, that increased to 500-600 roughly, and I think the way I can describe that event, or that transition of ACX is, imagine, like, I was talking about, like, the moving truck, right? So the way I think of it is in that previous release, what we did is we added a bigger bed to that moving truck, but kind of left the engine the same size. So it kind of we're kind of dragging the additional weight, and we know that it'll get there, but we had the opportunity to do better, right? So in 410, what we've done is double the cargo compartment again, but now we've like also increased the engine to, like, handle it. Like we've rebuilt the whole platform to handle a much larger concurrency, to handle it well. So ACX 410. Yeah. Now it's got to be 12. So ACX 410 is like it's built to handle about 1,000 migrations at once across all of its service meshes. So it's doubled again, and it handles those 1,000 migrations, like, much better, right? I think it's I guess one way to think of it is, if you were to configure 1,000 migrations, I think it maybe, and we were gonna, like, get them working serially. It's about 2.5 seconds for each one, and then, like, they're all going. So within 30-40 minutes, every migration is transferring. It's ready for like the data transfer. So it's for that kind of scale, it's much better, right? I think one of the other aspects that we improved is the experience for users that are migrating hundreds of thousands of migrations. So usually the way it looks is you have these projects, they move in waves. So usually our users will be doing a few hundred VMs a week, and then they schedule them, finish them, verify them, and then they prepare the next bucket, right? So in 410, it's larger buckets, larger waves. But then also the aggregation of all that data is handled much better. So we can handle, I think, a couple of 100,000 migrations on one system before you even notice that, hey, okay, it's, the accrual of data in the UIs and the way things load is all of that is vastly improved in 410. So we're really kind of proud of that work. The second thing here is that I'm not going to go through each of these, but I just want to highlight some of the very cool new stuff, right? HAV, the second item for migration is it has to do with earlier we were talking about a native vMotion versus an HCX vMotion, right? So native vMotion, like, to me, that's the big race car. Like, if I had if I had one VM to migrate, I want to put it in that race car and, like, have it go, right? Yeah. We understand that as HCX people that vMotion is loved, and it works well. So what we're doing here is we're giving you the option to launch every migration type, including the native vCenter types within HCX. So if you have hosts that can if you have vMotion routing, your VM kernels are reachable. But you want the operational advantages of kind of sort of the HCX platform for planning and for orchestrating all of your migrations. You can do it all in one place. So that way, if you have one cluster that you have to do with HCX because of the processor vendor, but then also you have some VMs that are maybe they're high memory, high churn kind of workloads that maybe maybe it's a VM that's changing beyond what a ACX can traditionally handle. Then you can kick them off, in the same place, right? So you have one unified kind of console to do every migration type. So HAV also, if you have the luxury of saturating all of your pipes, you can do that with HAV. So in the initial launch, we allow 50 native emotions to happen concurrently via ACX, along with 1,000 of the traditional the traditional ACX migration types. So that's pretty excited to have that. In the future, in a kind of like in a following release, we're gonna add some of the ACX magic to the native emotions. So we'll have scheduled starts and some other stuff. Like, I don't want to spoil it all here, but
Oh
we
yeah,
got some
that
good
sounds
stuff
amazing.
coming. So I think right now, somebody would say, hey, like, why don't I just why not just vMotion and vCenter? I mean, you definitely can, but you can also do it with ACX and do it all one time in one UI, and kind of have a history of where your VMs are going within ACX. So second thing that we're adding that's pretty big is the ability to disable the default encryption mode and go native. Sorry, not native. To go to have transports that are unencrypted. So encryption has been really important for ACX, for especially in the use case of cloud adoption, right? Where a provider is hosting infrastructure, you want that data transfer to be secure, but in more modern context, we see a lot of intra data center migration with ACX, and some of those customers they don't want the overhead of that encryption. They want to go as fast as possible. So now what we're doing here is adding the knobs to disable IPsec, right? So the way it kind of works is ACX internally has a CPU to tunnel multi-tunnel model that transfers VM data over multiple tunnels along with IPsec encryption, and then ultimately out over UDP. So with ACX 410, we still have the same kind of performant multi-tunnel approach, but there's no encryption there. So it really is just more efficient. If you're within your data center and you don't need to encrypt, you can turn it off. That's
Kind of like the race car that doesn't have, like seatbelt or air conditioning and all the extra things. It's just
I wouldn't say seatbelts, but yeah, maybe some of the other
you
extra.
might want to have seatbelts. No, there's never a time where you would not encrypt your data public going externally, though, right? So that I would imagine it's only for internal.
Right. We actually have safeguards to so like if you're a customer that's using ACX already and you're migrating to a cloud and you have encrypted transports, we have mechanisms that make you attest that your uplinks are secure and you're okay to unencrypt before even allowing you to like decrypt, right? So it's we have guardrails, but then if you have private if you have private lines and you can go without that encryption, then you can go a little bit faster.
Okay.
and and so something I kind of want to mention is the this option is allowing us to triple our per flow capability. So like for the last 8 years, one of the limiting points in ACX is the per flow capabilities of the network extension service. So it's a 1 Gbps per flow service. Over a full appliance, it's 5 to 6 gigabits per second. That's like the traditional limits that we've had for like forever. In 410, we're tripling the per flow limit to 3 Gbps when you have encryption disabled. And then at the appliance level, one appliance can handle 7 to 8 Gbps. So it's getting a lot closer to line rate when you disable that encryption.
Okay. Another question I see here from Rafat: can HCX integrate with VCD tenant so it can be installed and used from customer side under his own tenant?
So For VCD integration, it's what it's been historically. So we have the capability to integrate with VCD in the destination sites clouds. So you can take an org and make it an endpoint for a migration. If the source site uses VCD, 410 does not add integration at the source site for VCD. We kind of expect that the source site is a vCenter, a fully a vCenter that the user fully manages, right? So if you're a service provider that built your cloud on VCD, and each of your customers is an org, you can give them specific access to those resource pools. But then at the source sites, at the source, each of those customers should have access to like their own full vCenter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the modernization, I see you've got vSAN Max there, which is available in VCF
Yes.
5.2.
Yeah.
How does HCX play with vSAN Max?
So in a recent release, we went through the software changes to support ESA migrations to ESA data source to and from. So we support so ESA to ESA, OSA to ESA. So all the variations. That really it's traditional ACX just supports it. And actually, this along with vSAN Max, we recently added support for VWall. So we have full coverage for any storage type that you may have. Right? So one of the key scenarios is we were asked by customers who are adopting it within a vCenter. So actually, that's one of the least known things is some customers have projects within a vCenter where they don't want to go manually configure storage vMotions. Well, in ACX 410 with HAV, you can actually go do storage only migrations. This is a totally new use case for ACX, right? So if you're going cluster to cluster, storage to storage, you can configure it all in ACX, and it just does the piece that it needs to without going through an IX. So that's kind of a big use case for HAV. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. Let's see. Are there any more?
I see Jonathan making observation about avoiding double encapsulation when you have the configurable transport encryption. So that's a good observation.
Yeah. No, yeah, we definitely. Especially in the network extension side, I think we've had customers who love the service, but within a VLAN, they're like, hey, we just need we needed to support more bandwidth per flow, and yeah, so we tackle those limitations in this release.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. I guess. How are we doing on time, by the way, Pete? Because
we're wrapping up. Actually, I definitely all I'd love to do. If there are any other questions, by all means, get them in now. Any comments for either of our guests, by all means, drop them in there. Appreciate you guys watching live. But this is part of VCF 5.2. Where do people go to find more information about HCX? Clearly, you can Google it and find it. Obviously, there's a landing page that shows everything. But where can people go to learn more about HCX?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can share resources or links here, but
yeah, you can drop them in the chat, or just let us know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, there is a link for just HCX resources, and that has your technical resources and other assets. And if there's a way, maybe I'll share the link with you, Pete, and you can share that with everyone else. But we will also be publishing blogs on what's new, what's coming, and VCF networking 5.2, HCX 410. So stay tuned for the more deep dive blogs. And in those resources, you'll see hands-on labs as well. So for any of you that are looking to just play with HCX and want to try out the hands-on labs, you will be able to access that through the resources page. So do definitely take a look. And if you are an HCX customer, we encourage you to look into that 410 release that you just heard about, because it's a very exciting release for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, Devyani and Gabe, you guys have been awesome taking all the questions online here and going with the flow. I appreciate you joining this VMware Cloud Foundation Live. We try to do these once a month. Well, we do them once a month. We've got several in the in the pipe. So by all means, stay tuned, stay subscribed to the VMware LinkedIn page to follow and to take a look at the calendar for all of the upcoming VCF Lives. But guys, I want to thank you so much. This has been super informative. I've learned a lot. I cannot wait to see HCX 4.10 as part of VCF 5.2. Thank you for joining the live stream.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Take care.